So you mentioned recruiting a couple times when talking about the linebackers, and that's one thing I did want to ask you a little bit about because really for the last like 3 weeks, Jordan and I have opened the show just talking about the 4 recruits Tennessee landed. That is not the
Crazy.
case this week. Tennessee has actually not gotten anybody. There was a chance they might have gotten or could have gotten one on Wednesday, but Kamari Blair ultimately committed to South
Right.
Carolina. That was the last place he visited before making his decision. I don't know how much of an impact that really had. But just looking on the horizon, there are some guys who have expressed interest in Tennessee, but have not seen any commitment dates from any of them. A couple 5 stars are in the mix. Darius Gray, the interior offensive lineman. Then, of course, Savion Hyder, the running back. On3 keeps saying it's Tennessee and Michigan there. But Savion has also debunked On3 in the past, so you never know. Anybody that stands out to you right now that Tennessee could potentially land here in the next month before football season?
Yeah, I think so far, a lot of what Tennessee's summer recruiting surge, was doing was bolstering the depth in the class. And you might have some people that are upset that Tennessee had maybe one too many 3 stars or didn't pick up enough 4 stars. I don't necessarily buy stock into that because I think that first off, they did get a lot of, a good bit of the 4 stars that they were looking about. We just talked about 2 linebackers that were right there. Zay Anderson was recently just bumped up to a 4-star. You're going to see a little bit more movement with those rankings, I believe, until they hit National Signing Day. But they're also players that Tennessee likes. And I think that's the most important thing because the three of us can sit there and we can look at 247 Sports or Rivals or whatever it is, and we can look through the star ratings and we can kind of get an idea on that. But Josh Heupel and Tim Banks and Joey Halsley, those are the guys who are looking about what skill sets can translate over to what we want to do on the field. And I think that's not bad. Now, sitting top 15 right now, I believe Tennessee was number 13 last time I checked 247's rankings, and that was maybe a couple of days ago. I think they'd like to see that higher, and there's still a couple of chances to do that. We're talking about some of the big fish that are left. Again, Tennessee bolstered, in my opinion, a good bit of that depth with that summer recruiting surge. But now it's some of those big fish left. You just talked about the offensive lineman. You just talked about Savion Hyder, the running back. And then I think people are still talking about Tristan Keys out there, kind of, playing the fence with some of these teams. And will he stay at LSU? Will he look at Tennessee? Will he look at some of these others? We know that a lot of Tennessee's current commitments right now are trying to really talk to him and bring him in. I think you're just looking at some of those big fish left. And I believe Tennessee's at 21 recruits right now. So the class is winding down. Maybe they're just kind of saving a little bit of room to see if they can land any of those big fish. But I think the surge did a lot over the summer to give you a lot of what you wanted. And you might have missed some of it, right? It feels like some of it might have been so compacted together that it almost kind of just some news washes over the other. But I do think that Tennessee's got a good class right now. I think they would love to get that into the top 10 by the time that the cycle's over. But again, the only way that they can kind of do that right now is by landing 1 or 2 of those big fish that are left out there. So I really look at Darius Gray, the offensive lineman, as somebody who could be a cornerstone piece to the class. We know what David Sanders Jr. was to the previous class. We know what David Sanders Jr. is going to potentially do as a true freshman this year, potentially at the right tackle position. If they're going to keep Lance Hurd at the left tackle spot, then you're putting a true freshman on the line right there. But he is that good that I think that he can step into that role with the right coaching. Offensive line, I think, is just so unbelievably important. Don't get me wrong. I just as a football fan, I'd kill to see what Savion Hyder could do in this offense, especially if you got him working with it, maybe a Faison Brandon or someone down the road like the quarterback who's trying to recruit him right now. But you need to shore up those trenches to be able to do anything. So I think that Tennessee is going to try to take their swings at some of these last big guys. But I think that summer recruiting surge gave Tennessee a lot of the, I don't want to say filler pieces that might not come off the right way, but just sort of to fill the class up with who they need. A lot of those filler pieces came in a very short amount of time. And we're going to be spending plenty of time going over these next couple months, sort of backtracking and looking at what actually each one of them brings to the table. And I think by the time that we get to National Signing Day, people are going to feel pretty comfortable with the different talent that Tennessee is bringing in, especially when you're headlining the class with a guy like Faison Brandon.